Okay, firstly, sorry about the rain noise. If you hear rain on the roof, there's nothing I can do about it, obviously. I'm not that good. And to be truthfully honest, I'm not going to complain about it because we haven't had rain for a while and I'm loving it. Always love being in my shed when it's raining. Something cozy about it. This here is where this bearing has to go, and this bearing, which was about £150, so it wasn't cheap. Okay, you saw the one that I destroyed getting out. It has this outer ring, okay, so the shell bearing, that's supposed to go in there, okay, but of course there's one in there already. So I'm having a good look at the one that's in there. I'd really like to mate these two together rather than just pop this in. That's the quick fix, is just to pop it in. Like I say, this car doesn't do a lot of kilometers, but you know, it feels nice, but yeah, can I pop it out? Well, if I turn it over and I'll take the camera off the tripod and try and focus down here with a bit of light. There we go. Can you see that little thing that's, I'll put my finger down there, see if I can get my finger under there, right there in front of my finger there. See that little bit there? And there's also one there on the other side as well. Obviously you put something in there through this hole here and tap that out. When I say obviously, I'm not 100% that that's what it is, but it kind of makes sense to me, because how else would you pull that out? You just wouldn't. So replacing that bearing is a bell housing off job regardless. So that's what I think anyway. If you think different, you can put something in the comments, but it's going to be post me attempting to knock that out. Okay, so I'm looking at using something along the lines of, this is a homemade tool I made a long time ago, so see that? I may flatten that out a little bit more so it doesn't have that tapered edge, so it's nice and flat, and then it's just an old screwdriver, and then hopefully I can knock that out. So I'll cut that flat and just give it just take the sharp edge off it and put it in there like that. I'm not going to be able to film this and show you. See if I can put some light there, see if that works. There we go. And put that in there like that, so it's sitting on there like that, and just tap that side, then tap the other side, tap that side and tap the other side, and hopefully I'll push it out. To get the new one on, well, I'm thinking about using the old one to sit over the top of the new one and tap that one in around. Hopefully that works. Anyway, it is sitting up on the back of the car, as you can see, but there's wood, then there's 2 layers of padding, and then there's material under that, so I'm not damaging the car. But don't think for a minute that I'm going to knock this out sitting up on the back boot of my car trunk. Okay, I'm going to put it down onto the concrete, onto a bit of wood, make sure all the studs down here are protected with nuts, so they're not going to do any damage, and attempt to knock that out. I actually may even put it on some blocks so the studs aren't even touching the ground, so it's actually the face of the bell housing, that area there. I think that might be wise. I don't really want to be banging, even though they're on wood, I don't want to be banging against these studs, because who knows how tight that's going to be. But I'm going to attempt to get that out. If I can get that out and the new one in, that'll be a major success, and then it'll be a matter of basically presenting this to the car with, of course, once I take all this protective tape off, of course putting my thrust bearing back on as well. Don't want to forget that. I'll be peed right off if I forget that. Okay, so I'm gonna look at knocking this out. Okay, so the bell housing's on the ground and I've got some Jarrah hard redwood, Australian redwood, very hard Jarrah down there, so you can see studs are not touching the ground, neither is that gear under there. So this Jarrah will not compress a great deal. It's not pine, I assure you. It's a very, very hard wood. So I've just put a light underneath it just so I can sort of see down there. You're not going to be able to see it as I attempt to do it. But I'll try and get in close to it. Okay, wish me luck. Got the old gimpy. So, bit of clout. So I'm just gonna, and I've flattened that off. You can see there it's very different to what it was. So it's nice and flat, nice, no sharp edge. And I'm just going to give it a light tap and see what happens. One side, and the other side. Trying not to slip off it. That moved, I felt it move, people. Okay, now I'm just going to reset this. Make sure it's not going to slip off. Okay, I did feel it move. Yes, I felt that move. Yes. It's definitely coming out. I'm just going to reposition everything once again, taking my time, making sure I do this right. Looks like I'm onto a winner here, but let's not get too excited. It's tight, but it's moving. Just a little bit each time. Oh, wasn't that a lovely sound? So it's going to go into it. That way. But I'll double check that and make sure that is correct. Okay. Blocks worked well, and so did my little press tool. Carefully putting that down. Alright. Next step would have been to knock it back in. So same deal, turn it over, put it on some nice blocks of wood here. And then, yeah. Give you an idea how hard this Jarrah is. If I pound that, I hit that pretty hard with a gimpy. And you'll just put a little dent in it. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Australian hardwoods, but we have a few. This is one of the most famous ones, Jarrah. Beautiful. My house floors are made of this, highly polished. Looks beautiful. Yeah, it's great. Great wood, this. Okay, I shall be back. Okay, so I thought I had some freeze and release, and I don't. Pretty sure I had some, but I'm not going to go spend 20 bucks on a can just to put this bearing in. So I'm cooling it down. It's in my freezer. So I'm going to cool it down for a while, give it at least half an hour, and I'm going to use heat on the aluminium on the other side, so hopefully expand the aluminium, contract that, and it's going to make this ring bearing go in a little bit better. Okay, here's the plan, guys. You saw that I've got the ring bearing in the freezer going cold. and I've got my blowtorch here, and I'm going to heat this up here. Then I'm going to run down, grab my frozen ring bearing, going to come back here, and it's going to be in some ice water to keep it cold as can be, you know, I mean, can only get it as best I can. Then I'm going to reheat this again, just bring the temperature back up and present the bearing to it and block of wood on the top. So if I use the old one just to demonstrate, ring on the outside, so I'll put it there, present it there, the hammer's ready to go, start tapping it in, and I probably started to tap that in literally, and that started to go nicely. So you saw this where are we? This jar of hardwood is really, really good for this kind of thing. Very expensive wood too. I want to build a house out of that stuff. Oh, fortune. So I'm just going to wait a little bit longer. I won't film necessarily me heating this up the whole time. I'm going to give it quite a bit of time. Probably melt a little of this, a bit of this. So don't really want to melt that into my bearing. So I'll just have to keep an eye on that. So I may put this plate over that to protect that. Might be a good idea. And so I'm going to heat this up for a little while. I'm thinking maybe 10 minutes or so. Get it nice and hot, and then run off, get the bearing, come back, heat it up a little bit more, and then knock that bearing straight in. That's the plan. Let's see if it works. That'll be right. Okay, we're getting pretty hot now, so I've got my bearing inside. I'm burning a little bit of wood down the bottom there. That's what the smoke is. So I've got my bearing. It's in here. It's in the ice water. It's about to come out. All right, I reckon that's not bad. So it's about to come out. Orientated the right way. Oh, that's almost going in on its own. Look at that. I'll get the old one. Put it on top. And out it comes. Did it go in far enough? Yes, I can see the ring around there. And it's seated all the way down. How easy was that? That's the way to do it. Freeze one, heat the other, and it actually fell halfway in. I didn't even have to tap it in, it fell halfway in, and then you saw how gently I tapped that in, and then just finished it off with this bearing here, which already has transferred a lot of heat, and just tapped it in just to finish it off and make sure it's seated properly. Wow, that bearing's that's already too hot. Alright, I'm just going to let that cool on its own. I'm not going to wet it at all. That would be stupid. And that's that job done. Okay, so the next task is to just simply give the bell housing face gasket face a wipe. It's not really a gasket now, there's no gasket. This area here doesn't need gasket around to here. This area here does, so these are the oil ways where you're going to get oil through. So basically from here, gasket go around there. So that part of the bell housing needs to have some gasket goo. Just for your interest, this is what I'm using, Permatex maximum oil resistance gasket maker advanced formula. That's what I used for the gasket behind the sandwich plate. So I'm going to undo these large nuts here. Pretty sure that was 17 mil or something like that. Not all of them are 17 mil. The top ones are. That one there's a smaller one. It's a smaller nut. Looks like about a 13. The other ones look like they're 17. The reason I have to undo those is because I need to. That's for the bell housing, obviously. So I've got. That's why the spacers are there to take up that gap. So it's been a few days now, almost a week since the gasket was put on at the back there, so that should be well and truly dry and bedded in. So next step, take those nuts off and put some goo on here. Now 2 of the O-rings will go on the bell housing. 1 of the O-rings will go onto here. And I might just clean that surface up a little bit. It's got a little bit of goo on it. So the small O-ring will go on here, and then the other 2 O-rings, one that fits around here and the other one is for there. I'll most likely put them, actually let me think, looking at it now, that's the one that you want to fit to the engine block, because it's got the recess. And then these 2 are going to go, so there's the holes. So you can see the ones with the recesses, you want to put the O-ring on that side to the bell housing, and that one there, which will be that one there. Where's my shot? There. You want to put on there. So use a bit of this goo to keep them in place, and you really want to watch that when you're putting the bell housing on. You really want to watch that they're in position. So you want to check it from underneath or at the top, wherever you can get access to see, and make sure that they're on. So I'm going to take those nuts off now and expose the studs. I have put this oil line back on. I got it off with it there. That was my thinking, so I can put it on, and it really, this isn't pivoting, so I'm really not going to gain that much space. I've actually lifted it up a bit. As you can see, it used to be sitting down here on the corner there, and you can see where the braiding was touching. I don't like that, so I'm going to eventually cut that off, put a plastic sheath around that, and then tie it back up again just to protect it some extra. It's not leaking, but it would have eventually, and then that's an expensive piece, and then you know, you go buy spanners to fit this kind of stuff, and then the cost just goes up. So alright, so nuts off and spacers out and bell housing prepare with a thrust bearing and O-rings ready to go. Alright, wish me luck. Okay, all the studs for the bell housing are now exposed. I'm just taking some tape off. The reason I put this tape here is there's a little hole down there, okay, and that little hole leads to the bearing that's in there. So when I was cleaning it, I cleaned it, like, it's reasonably clean. It doesn't look that clean, but it actually is pretty clean. I didn't go bananas with it because you end up getting crap in this bearing here, and then you've got to take that off and clean it out and then re-glue it, and it's a pain. So I'm just going to remove this protector. This was solely just to protect, to keep that shaft protected, and also from knocks, but also to keep, because you'll see as I wind this tape off. He says, you see there, see that gap? You can get crap down in there. Goes straight down into your bearing. Not good. So that's kept that nice and clean. I'm not going to spin it. Well, I say I'm not going to. I am now. That's pretty good. I was scared then. I thought it might make grinding noises. So I'll flip that over and thrust bearing. No. Yes. And on it goes. Just make sure it's orientated correctly. So these little seats here, you can see those little seats there are what go on the tips of those. So make sure it's orientated correctly, so that bottom part can't spin. Okay, and you can check it with a little bit of light just to make sure it is. So if it's not on them, it won't slot in properly. You know what I mean? See that? If I spin the whole thing, not just the bearing, the whole, there you go, it's dropped in. And the bottom part, the bearing will spin, but the bottom part of it won't turn. So that's what you want to keep it like that. So with this, try not to move the handle down here. Yeah, try not to move that. So if you keep that back, it should be okay. I might actually just quickly take that bearing back off and then put my little helper on. I'm not sure if I'll need this because it's more of a push on this time, not a pull off. So pushing it on hopefully is going to be easier. But anyhow, I'm going to try and get that into position. I'm not going to film this part because I just don't have the room to film it properly. But basically I'm trying to get it on around these studs and the shaft. You can see the ring nut is off now. I've cleaned up around the gasket area down here, and I'll just give it one last wipe on here, remembering that there is no gasket for this part. It's just a bit of goo to cover this area here, and I'm thinking I'm going to put the goo on the car side, on the engine side, rather than on the bell housing side, because my fingers are going to be around here and doing all sorts of stuff, so I want to be careful. O-rings are next for there, so I want to be fairly quick when I try and put this on, because once I've got that goo on there, I don't want it starting to go off. It's pretty cool here. It's wet. When I say cool, it's summer rain for us still, so it's probably about 22 degrees, 24 degrees C. So it's still quite warm even though it's raining, but it's cool relatively speaking compared to what it has been of recent, between 36 and 38 degrees C, which is the old 100 for you Americans. Okay, alright, I'll get back to you when I've got this sucker on there. Wish me luck again. Okay, O-ring time. So I'm just going to turn off Hoovy. Don't want Tyler suing me for copyright. Okay, so 1, 2, and this one is going onto that, onto the one that's on the car, on the engine. Okay, they fit in there nicely, so I'm going to use a little bit of goo, put them in there. So I'm just going to run a little bit of that. Not too much, just enough to, it's quite sticky this stuff, so I don't want it on the inside. I don't want it in there. Just want it. So give it a wipe like that. Wipe around and then stick that in place like that, so it stays in place. It only sits on the top, so it's Yeah. And then this one, maybe a little bit on the actual ring itself will be easier, who knows. Okay, and a little bit at the top, just to hold it in place like that. Trying not to get any on the inside. I mean, a tiny bit is not going to hurt. Okay, that's those in position. I've got to be really mindful of them when putting that on. Just another quick thing that I've done. I've tied the lever here for the thrust bearing. I've tied it to there. Okay, that's holding it up. That's keeping it up. So by holding it that way, it keeps these forks down so they're not moving. So when I put the thrust bearing on, it's only the bearing that's going to move, as in forward and back. But it's not going to. Those levers aren't going to throw it out forward. So unless I tilt it forward, it shouldn't actually fall off. Okay, so now I'm going to put that last one on, which is, can you see it? There he is. Center of shot right now. That one there. Okay, that one. That's that last O-ring. Okay, I'm going to put that in, and then I'm basically going to put a bit of goo down there. I'll show you that, and then I'm going to present, and hopefully I've lined up my clutch properly. Okay, goo on, O-ring in place, and the goo's there. Now it's time to put that bell housing on. Alright, I probably put a little bit too much goo, but I'd rather a little bit more than not enough, because it's only a goo gasket, so I don't want it leaking gearbox oil. Okay, a bit of jiggling, but I got him on. So it's sitting on the studs. It's still not pressed home yet. I'm going to do one last check down here. I'll do the best I can. I saw them a minute ago and they were fine, but I'm just seeing if I can see. It's pretty hard to see down there. I can't really make head or tail, but I'm looking for, see if I can see the O-rings. You can't see them on camera, but I'm going to make sure that they're there before I actually press it in. So I'm looking through the top here between the bell housing and the friction plate, or should I say the sandwich plate. Okay, I worked out how you can see all three. There's one you can see, a little bit of green there around that pipe, just there. Okay, there's one there, and then if you come underneath and you have a look, I'll try and get them in shot. I don't know if I'm filming them there. Can you see the O-ring there? And there's the other one. Just see them. Okay, so they're in position. So it should go on. So I'm just going to press that on now. Okay, so it's in, and I've connected up the slave cylinder as well. It wasn't super hard, but it wasn't that easy. So it's definitely all in, and I've torqued it all up. I'm not sure on the exact torques for the bell housing. I'll have to double check that, but I put about 20 pound on it. It really doesn't need a lot, because yeah, it doesn't need heaps. So I put 20 pound on it at the moment. If there's anything different, or hugely different, I'll check that and I'll mention it. But now it's just a matter of putting the looking at putting the gears and all that back on and just connecting up like the starter motor, putting the starter motor in. I'm not going to film the starter motor because I've got a video on how to put in a starter motor, so I'm not going to refilm that, and I'm not going to film connecting up all these little bits and pieces that I've taken off. Nothing too serious, but I will talk about this bit here because this is quite important. Okay, so that's going to be the next thing, putting those bearings in down here. Whether I put that cog back on or not, I'm not 100% sure, so there might be some other work in between me doing this and then putting that last gear on, because remember that gear was damaged and I'm definitely replacing it. So anyhow, success so far. The only thing that concerns me is that when I took the bell housing off, I noticed the thrust bearing did not have a retaining clip on it. Well, from what I gather, this car doesn't have a retaining clip for the bearing. So I know in the earlier models they do. I think maybe the Mondial 8 may have, earlier 308 engines may have it, but mine didn't seem to have it. I looked in the manual and there actually wasn't one pictured. So because I was going to buy one because this car didn't have one and there wasn't one pictured, so I figured, well, okay, well, it doesn't have one. So the only thing that concerns me is that bearing, you know, the thrust bearing is still in its position, so maybe it just turns and slots into position if it's out of position. I'm really not 100% sure. That will be a real bummer if there's something wrong with the clutch and I have to take the bell housing back off again. That will be a real bummer. But I'll kind of check whether the clutch is engaging or disengaging before I go and put all my ancillaries on. And you know, like, finish this off. I'll check it off that nut there, off that gear, and see if it's releasing or if it's locked. I don't know what size nut that is, it's massive, but I'll put a spanner on it or something anyway. So all is good, so no damaged studs on the way in. I used my stick here, there, here, 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 and up here especially. Like that was a really good spot. That flat there, that's a really good spot to, you know, bash. And obviously in the past there's little scratches on it, so I guess in the past it's been struck before. You can't really see, the light's not that great there, but there's scratches on that. But that's a good place to bash, that flat up there, just there. That's a good place to knock it. And yeah, with the old rubber mallet, so basically bang bang, bang bang, bang bang, and really tapped it on, you know, gave it a few hard hits. So you can see I chipped my little thing because I've whacked it a few times. But this, I won't throw this away, I'll keep this, I'll put it somewhere, I'll write on it, Mondial bell housing. Okay, so I'm going to look at putting the bearings in here as the next step, so I'll be back. Okay, I've got something holding the clutch down at the moment, and as you can see, I can turn that really easy. Okay, so now I'm going to go release the clutch. Just one sec. Now I shouldn't be able to turn it. Nah, it's locked. Put my big spanner on here. It's the largest spanner I've got, and it only just completely wide open. That's 45 mil that. So yeah, I can't move that. So that means the clutch is engaging and disengaging, which is sweet. That's a good sign. Now I'm going to start doing this. So I've got my goodies. I'm just going to set the camera up properly and start that.